Okay, good morning. And I think the last day of the conference, I think many of you may be fatigued, but I think there's still some juice left in us. So let's hope we wind up on a nice note. Thanks, Dr. Siddharth Panda. I think he is running one of the fantastic Center for Flexible Electronics at IIT Kanpur, helping a lot of startups. Maybe we may also go to him for some help. And I think he did his PhD from Houston, right? So thanks for introducing me. So I started this company almost 4 years back. The idea was to get sports as a medium to uh, transform the healthcare. So how do we bring preventive healthcare to sports? So that was a thought process. Earlier, when I was working with Philips, uh, I realized that most of what we do at Philips or any other medtech company is, uh, you know, at, going to the hospitals, but there's not much for the kids and the younger generation. And as you know, India is more young than old, right? So we wanted to bring healthcare uh, and see how we can do that through an engaging medium like sports. So I'll just look at what are the things we need to look for any sensing, the biosensing and the human sensing, and what is required for the infrastructure, right? So what's the IoT we are doing there? So if you look at human sensing, you are looking at primarily internal load and external load, right? So by internal load, we are looking at what's your uh, body physiology, right? Your heart rate, starting with that, then your oxygen levels, you're looking at blood pressure and all the vitals, right? Which is typical in a medical uh, system or a medical tech company. But these are things which you would want to look for in an athlete right from the time they start training for any sports. And the second one is biomechanics, because the human body, as you know, we have evolved to be moving, right? But we are not moving as much as we are supposed to move. And that's leading to a lot of obesity and diabetes and all the other issues. So the biomechanics part is also important for an athlete because if they get it wrong, it leads to injuries. And we have seen many, many cases, uh, not just in cricket, but it's not a very intense sport, in my opinion. Uh, but in many other sports where if you get the wrong biomechanics, you're in trouble. Uh, and what happens is the athlete, once he is injured, he goes into a rehab phase. They lose confidence, and for them to come back and play at the prime is going to be really difficult, right? So biomechanics is important. Understanding the motion in a very smooth way is very, very important. So we focused a lot on the internal load monitoring because we felt a lot of contraptions out there for biomechanics, starting from infrastructure to wearables. So we started with what we were comfortable with, which is health tech. And we made something called a smart jersey, right? So essentially it is a textile-based wearable. And it's uh, it's comfortable because it's made of textiles. So it's like your second skin, which we wear. And it's got some technology infused, which makes it really comfortable even for sensing, right? So this is made out of stainless steel fibers, right? So I have a sample here. If someone is interested, you can have a look. And it is fused into the textile, and when you wear it, it's as good as you don't feel it actually, right? And steel is something which we are used to as humans. You know, we invented it a long time back. It's highly biocompatible. It's very rugged, right? So we use steel in so many other forms, starting from the kitchen. So this is something which we understand very well, and it's very rugged. So the way it's constructed, it's got these electrodes made of stainless steel fibers, and then the nylon spandex composition is usual for any corpus wear. And the key thing is it's machine washable, right? Usually we have a wearable, then you say that don't put it in water or don't, do all the ingress protection. But here you can wash it in a normal laundry. And the monitoring device, which basically takes, in this case, the ECG, is put here on the back, or it could be placed anywhere else. And then you get the data on your app. So these are some of the things which we can monitor, heart rate, temperature, in some other contraptions or variations of that, we have even SpO2 coming out of it. So this is how it communicates. And from day one, we have been on Microsoft Azure because, from a healthcare perspective, they have a lot of compliances already built in. So we chose to do that. The GDPR complaints, HIPAA, and all that can be built in case we pivot to a healthcare kind of need. So this is one example of what we get out of it. This is an athlete who is a mixed martial arts athlete. And if you look at somebody in combat sports, they don't want to wear any other wearable, right? I mean, it's about to break at some point in time. And they want it to be really comfortable because they are going through so much motions, they are getting hit, right? So they chose this and said that we like this, we want to wear it like any athleisure, but then the data is coming out. So they typically do about 4 HIIT cycles, right, in any training session. And the data they get every day, they analyze, and then they look at, is this athlete going to get injured? And what's the kind of recovery? So sleep and recovery is also kind of important part of this. They look at whether an athlete has to get a 24-hour break or a 48-hour break and so on. Right? So this is very, very interesting for them. So the moment their training session is finished, the data comes to our cloud and automatically they get a report like this. So in terms of comparison, as a company, we like to keep comparing, looking at what competition is out there. Many of you must have seen the Polar and Garmin's of the world, which is like a band, chest band, but it's not very comfortable for athletes, right? So after a while, it slips because you start sweating, and it's a very plasticky feel, right? So you don't like it. Even if you're a marathon runner, you don't like it actually. And then there are other, the important thing being that whereas we are looking at the plastic and a very hard feel on the skin, this one is much more comfortable, right? It's as if you're not wearing something with technology. So we launched this way back in 2022. Some of you cricket fans here might know about this team. We also used it, as I said, one of the mixed martial arts company. And we also have an interesting application in meditation and yoga, where we want to monitor the diaphragmatic breathing, right? So it's normally we derive respiration from ECG. But suppose I want to look at a cardiopulmonary kind of coherence, I don't get it naturally from any of the wearables, right? So here with a kind of a strain gauge here built into this wearable, I can actually get native chest wall movement, right? Which is again a differentiator compared to any other wearable in the market. So we recently did a pilot at one of the top centers of excellence near Bangalore. It's a place called Bellary where they train the Neeraj Chopras of the world. So this one, the wrestler is wearing this. You can see that black stuff within the singleton, the red singleton. So he's a world under-19 champion. And the thing was they wanted to prove that you can still get data despite being a very close combat sports, right? And we did have issues. I won't say we didn't have issues. We did have issues, but we know how to resolve them. So now we are taking this to the second phase of pilot and expanding this. yeah, some of the testimonials from a tough Iranian coach who's training the wrestlers there and the sports scientist. I think they felt that even for combat sports, it's a very comfortable. I mean, because the athletes were saying, was there something inside? We didn't know, right? So it's very, very comfortable. Now, moving on to the IoT part. These are some of the things which are happening already in the world where, in a football match, for example, you're looking at what's the amount of noise generated in the stadium and how much of it is equivalent to a richer scale, right? So I think that kind of interesting fan engagement exercises are happening. And then of course the brands want to know what's the kind of data coming out of the stadium, not just what is going on within the broadcast, but also what is happening there. And based on that, they have a lot of, activations, as they call it. And this one must be, I think, resonates. I think all of you know this goal, which was sort of controversial during the FIFA World Cup, where Ronaldo, I think, claimed, he, he in fact headed the ball into the goal and it was his goal, but then they proved with the sensing that not even a hair had touched the ball or something like that. So it's that's where again IoT and sensing in sports arena is picking up in a big way. And we are also familiar with a lot of technology in cricket in India, which is coming up, right? So we chose to work in our popular sport. So what you see here is in 2023 IPL, we were able to gather the heart rates of fans, heartbeat of the nation or something we called it. And the important moment, the match, through our IoT platform, we were able to push and see what is the sentiment of the fan, what is the jump in heart rate in the fans. So this went live on Star Sports, and we are likely to repeat this again in a very interesting way this coming in PL. So what you get here is the sentiment of fans across, for the entire match. And that is very important for the brands because they know at what point in time I need to push an advertisement or my brand has to bid for that slot. Today, if you think about it, let's say Virat Kohli gets out and you have a bunch of advertisements of Virat Kohli coming up, which you're not very happy with, right? So here is a way where you can actually use IoT to get real-time data of the fans and then plug it into broadcast. Right? Yeah, so this was one more sound meter example where, I think this was the World Cup match. They use the technology from us and from the stadium to collect and gather the data in real time and push it into broadcast. 118 dB, I think is slightly high. I know it's almost like a jet engine. I don't believe those numbers, but then for broadcast, probably it works. Okay, so just to conclude, I think essentially sports sensing is multimodal in nature. So you have human sensing and infrastructure sensing, which can be enabled by nice wearables and the IoT. And it's in business point of view, it's a huge opportunity. Sports tech itself is more than $30 billion. And we hope that esports will actually accelerate that kind of technology penetration. In fact, actually, in some cases, they lead in terms of technology adoption. And then the normal sports follows that, right? So with that, I conclude and thanks for your patient listening. Any questions?
So wonderful this night, Dr. Kumar.
Yeah, thanks.
And I would like to thank for helping us keep the time because we started about 10 minutes late. But he finished the talk on time so that we'll be able to continue on time. Yes, please.
So, if there's no time, we can also take it for 5.
We have time.
Maybe it's
Okay. So it was really interesting the issue with the wrestling because the contact sport is really the place where really difficult to
Right.
do that. So how exactly the device on the back is
So, yeah, so, we have these electrodes here and the cables which goes to the hem of the garment. And on the back, we pad it up. So we pad it up and we have attached the device there so that when they roll over, and they are, fixed to the ground, they don't get hurt here, right? But there are other options, we are considering, right, like, for some of the sports where there may not be contact on the ground directly, maybe on the shoulder and all of that. So the textile gives you that ability to place it wherever you want, customize it for a certain use case, right? But yes, I think your point being that it has to be protected so that they don't get hurt. But I was just telling him that we might take your help for the flexible electronics to make it even more lighter and less rigid. Here's a question.
So in your monitoring box, how much of that is unique and has to be designed by you and how much of it is off the shelf?
All of this is custom designed. And what we do is, we own the IP for the electronics part and also for the textile cables. Of course, there are core IPs which are with our partners. But if you go for off the shelf, you don't get, for example, ECG with a respiration combination or ECG with EMG combination. So this has to be custom designed. Pardon?
You design a IC that.
No, we are not gone to that stage as yet. I think we do have some options off the shelf semiconductor components for that. Existing medical devices do use them, so we use the same thing. But I think there is a case for even a semiconductor option to build this section. Thanks.
If it's okay for you to share, what's the ballpark cost of this?
Depends on your wallet. So we are trying to keep this quite affordable because the normal, let's say, Polar and Garmin's of the world, or if you try and get this to India, it's about $200. We are trying to price it at half that. So we are in discussions with some big retail brands who are looking at that kind of ballpark. We want to position this better than a usual wearable because this is much more accurate. Usual wearables, as you know, like pulse space, like optic space, and when you have motion and sweat and grime and all that, the accuracy goes off. Whereas this is like a medical grade kind of thing, tapping into ECG directly. So that's a huge differentiator with respect to normal wearables, but it has to be cheaper than the belts, So we are trying to push in, but we are still discovering that price. Thanks. Last question, maybe.
This could be very well repurposed for elderly care and support. So
Yes. Yes, so we do have plans for that, for healthcare, also for defense. We are already building something for the Indian Army. So yeah, and lot of possibilities. Thanks. Thank you all. So let's get started with the session.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar.